Hey everyone, this is Terry Mitchell with Voice on Fire interviews. And for those who may not have tuned in to watch the Voice on Fire interviews on my YouTube channel or have perhaps even checked out the podcast, what I'm doing is providing a platform to people who I see as being life influencers, action takers, difference makers, change makers. They're people that are on a mission to either make a change in their community or perhaps even impact the global village that we all live in. And it's my pleasure today to introduce you to Wil Massara, who is really quite an amazing young man. And I'm going to be a little bit cheeky and reference him as being a young person because obviously, as some of you may have tuned into my podcasts and the like, you know, I'm sort of clocking up a few years. So anyone that's doing what Wil's doing for his age group, I think is quite amazing. So, Wil, I would like to welcome you on board. Thanks for joining me.
Well, thank you so much, Sherry. So excited to be here and honoured to be a part of this podcast YouTube series. So incredible that you be able to do this and create a platform that's online whilst we're all so isolated, you could say.
Yeah, aren't we? And for those who will watch this perhaps in years to come and wonder what the heck we're talking about, although I'm sure there won't be too many people that will miss out on the idea. The COVID virus is still pretty rampant at the moment, and I'm in Melbourne, Victoria, where one of the biggest hotspots is, and so I'm well isolated. And Wil's over in Western Australia, where I believe you've got a little more freedom of way of life over there.
Yep, exactly. As of the 1st of August, there are no restrictions.
Oh, really? Other than just not letting us Victorians in for a while?
Exactly. The borders, Mark said no more Victorians.
Yeah, no, hopefully we can get through it. It's been pretty much a big upheaval for not just us here in Australia, but anywhere around the world. It's one of those conversations I can chat with anyone in the world and we all know what I'm talking about. So with no further ado, I would love to start our conversation with highlighting that at your age, and I do reference that because we want to let others that are perhaps within the teen age group be really inspired by what it is that you took the initiative to do. So if you can cast your mind back there, Wil, let us know where some of your adventure started and where you're up to at the moment, because it's a really fascinating story.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess my entrepreneurial journey, you could say, began when I was like in primary school. I was always a problem solver, and for me, entrepreneurship is about solving a problem. It's about creating a solution to a problem. And the first problem that I had was our family went on a family holiday, and it was a bad air travel experience. And a quote by Malcolm X was, "If not me, then who? And if not now, then when?" Mm-hmm. And this led me to start Planepedia. I've actually got a pen here. And Planepedia was the Wikipedia of planes. I created when I was 11 years old. Mm-hmm. And it was created to create a less stressful air travel experience.
Okay.
And I went along and grew by about 500 followers and didn't really have much. I always knew that my age was a barrier for it growing. I knew within decades I'd be consulting with airlines. I'd be with media reps, reviewing airlines for money, getting free flights. But I knew not now because I was so young. Yeah. And then when I was 14, my local Bendigo bank invested in me as a leader and seen me as a leader. And they sponsored me to attend the Magic Moments Youth Leadership and Business Summit, which is a 5-day youth camp in Sydney. I applied.
Can I just catch you on that one? So you're saying it's the Magic Moments Foundation. Is that something that's only open to students in school?
It's for 14 to 17-year-olds.
Okay.
But they have a number of other programs, which are like for supporting the community.
Yeah.
But the only reason I applied was because Planepedia, free holiday, free plane trip. And I left that event feeling so inspired and so motivated to continue growing Planepedia and creating a change within my community. Mm-hmm. And you could say that's when my leadership journey began.
Okay.
And I joined my local youth advisory council and my student council, and I went ahead and started growing Planepedia quite rapidly. And as I started growing it and started connecting with other people within the industry and started networking, I was actually approached by Qantas, and I became the media rep and I became one of the partners for Qantas at the age of 15.
Wow. Okay.
And that is when I learned that my age does not determine my ability to achieve extraordinary things. And along with that, I also partnered with Singapore Airlines at the same time. And about at this same time, I was also going to year 11, which was one of the obviously daunting experiences, because I went into a new school. I had a choice to be whoever I wanted to be. I had to select my subjects, and the subjects were always framed to be the be all end all, and they were going to either make or break my future. If I don't succeed, I don't succeed in life. And I was very uncomfortable with that, because it wasn't just me feeling that way. It was every single young person going into year 11, every single person selecting their subjects. And again, I was placed in a position where the quote by Malcolm X, "If not me, then who, and if not now, then when," was in my mind. So I messaged a friend after reading a quote by Karen Lamb, "And a year from now, you'll wish you started today." I messaged a friend and I told them my idea for accountability, because I knew if I don't tell anyone, this won't progress forward. And the idea was to bring that 5-day event that rapidly changed my life and changed my perspective to Perth in a financially viable way for every student. So in a 1-day forum. And on February 8th, 2018, we'll grab it here, I launched Youth Leadership Academy Australia with the mission of building a positively sustainable future for youth leadership and empowerment.
Wow. Excellent.
And yeah, and 6 months after that, we hosted the first event in Perth with 65 students. And it was about filling the gaps of the system that I didn't feel supported in, my peers didn't feel supported in, and other young people didn't. And they were, for me, the 4 pillars at the time were entrepreneurship, leadership, teamwork, and communication. And we invited guest speakers, and obviously the first event was a little bit rough, because as every first event is. And we still left that event with 92% of students feeling more adequately prepared for the future and feeling more confident to lead their communities.
Wow.
That's
a big achievement all round, isn't it?
Yeah. And I was so over the moon with that. Maddie, who was by my side the entire time, she was a friend on message. We were like, yes, high fives, this needs to go further. And on 3 p.m. of that day, we were like, okay, let's do it further. And we made the decision to go national. And we were going to host 4 of these events around the country, and we were going to sell out every single one. We're going to have 500 students across the country. And that didn't happen. We had 212 students throughout the country, which was about 30%. We ended up selling about 35% of the tickets. And the reason for that was because we weren't necessarily aligned with the objectives of the event. We lost focus. We were so caught up in trying to break even and make it viable that we forgot the cause, we forgot the mission. And I was also in year 12 at the time, so I had a little bit going on in that side of things as well. And after that tour, I made a pledge to obviously reevaluate why I started. I looked at why I started, how we're going to achieve these outcomes. And 12 months later, we had launched school programs. We had launched community engagement programs. And we were running our second national tour with 760 students from over 80 schools. And that sold 103% of tickets. Like, Perth venue was over full.
Wow.
So
you had to focus, obviously, yeah.
Yeah, and we were so lucky, because our final event was on March 17th, about 2 days before restrictions came in for all events. And we skimmed in straight in time, and it was a very crazy time because March was our busiest month after that as well. And it's just like, we finished the Brisbane event. I called my travel agent. I was like, okay, just cancel all my flights. I just need to get back to WA before I get stuck.
Yeah. Wow.
And yeah. And now we've taken the opportunity, like yourself, to go online and still support young people. And we created the Virtual Young Entrepreneur Summit, which was running monthly, and had 3 objectives, and had a range of keynote speakers over 2 hours. It was to empower other young people to realize the opportunities of entrepreneurship, to shine a light on young people, and to also show how possible it really is to be an entrepreneur at no matter what age. So that's where we're at now.
Yeah, awesome. And I tuned into the first summit while it was on Facebook. Now I had to tune in the replay because obviously our time zones are a little different. And I was super impressed with just the enthusiasm and the passion that particularly some of the young girls were showing. And I say that because often we feel that as girls we sort of hold back a little bit, and it's, you know, it's not great to be, you know, putting ourselves out there because people take the wrong impression of us. But just having the guts and going for it, you know, it's really impressive to see so many young people believing in their little seed idea and believing in it so much that they felt that they did need to be held accountable to pursue it. And I can see why the platform that you've created is such a great one for creating inspiration for young people, and for letting them know that, you know, if they believe in the seed idea that they've got going on, if they see a problem and they believe they can be part of that solution or the creator of the solution, why not go for it? You know, it might not happen straight away. As you've discovered, it's a bit of a rocky road and a bit of a bumpy patch occasionally, but that's all part of the learning curve. It's really quite amazing that you found not just your seed idea, but how it's now transported itself forward from in-house meetings, so to speak, or in-room events, through to, you know, you're online and still being able to provide a service to your particular niche. So looking at what you've achieved, obviously this has been over, say, the last 3 or 4 years, would that be right?
Yeah.
Okay, so over the last 3 or 4 years, you've achieved really quite a remarkable and impressive outcome. In what is what you've achieved, what you've envisioned from the beginning, or at the beginning did you not really know quite what that vision was going to be?
I tell people this story quite a lot. The reason I started Youth Leadership Academy wasn't to start a business, it was to create a financial platform for me to legally run that first event. Okay. And all I wanted to do was to bring that event to Perth. I didn't see it as a business, I seen it as a platform where I was legal. And I didn't know that 2.5 years down the track that, yeah, we'd be running national tours. No, it was actually, I think it was like 18 months down the track, we ran the national sold out tour. It wasn't on the, we wrote a plan. The plan was to host this event and then host like another event a year later, and then a year later, and just to stay in Perth. I wasn't the visionary that I am today, where I see this one day event now hosted in 8 cities in 2021, including New Zealand.
Awesome. Wow. So would you say that the learning curve for you, and it's a really powerful one, is realizing that it's just possible to think bigger?
Yeah. As soon as I started establishing, like, my age did not matter with them first partnerships of me rocking up at the airport with Qantas at 15 and them being like, oh, you must be Planet P, not even questioning my age, was like, well, if they don't care, not many other people will care.
Yeah.
As long as I'm providing them a service, they're providing me a service, and I'm up to the standard.
Yeah.
And I guess that's another thing that we've been working on over the last 3 years, is building that professionality. I went into an industry of event management with no skills, with no past experience.
Yeah.
It was fold, get back up, try a different way. If something doesn't work, there is going to be another way.
Yeah.
And to continue building that professionality with the schools and to build that trust, and to keep building the brand in a way of, yes. There was also a big thing for me that I had to learn, was to say no now to be able to say yes to other things.
Yeah.
And that first came, one of the biggest decisions I had to make was in June of 2018, 2 months prior to the first event, was to actually turn off Planopedia. The passion for Planopedia wasn't necessarily there, and it wasn't a driving force. Whereas I knew youth leadership was the driving force, and it was the reason why I was here today. And like, I sold 200 of these pens in for $2 each in 2 weeks because of the branding I built up from this. And like, yes, I spent 4 years on it, but I learned website development, I learned Instagram marketing, I learned partnerships. So all the skills that I learned left me in a prime position to grow youth leadership.
Mm. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I echo that a little bit just to let the listeners know where I am in terms of agreeing and understanding with regards to your learning curve. Last year, I myself decided to just plunge headlong into event creation, having never done it before, having never even gone down that pathway, never had the seed of thought for it before, and created over the course of 7 months. I did 7 different events in my relatively local area because I was providing a platform for speakers to share their message for the first time. And it's amazing where that the first event was very rustic, very rudimentary, but it worked. And it worked enough. And it wasn't enough that it was something I could foresee myself doing going forward. But I think that's what your journey is about, isn't it? Where you discover the things, you learn things, you realise, you know, with event management, you get to learn about catering, and you get to learn about getting tickets and you know, how do you create the purchasing platforms, and how do you market yourself, and all of those. It really does come down to almost anything that you decide to invest time and energy into. You'll have skill sets that you'll develop, and there'll be things you'll learn that are just priceless. They really, you don't know what purpose those skills will serve you until a little bit down the track, when you realize you can call upon all of those amazing skills. Is that something that you've discovered as your experience?
Yeah, for sure. And I guess like that's another thing from being the Magic Moments Foundation. After I went to that first event, I've returned every single year to serve back. And through the 12 months that I'm the chairperson of the youth committee, and the skills that I've learned from there, the people that I've met, the energy that I've invested in that has been so worthwhile for me. And the universe has returned that favor in ways that I would never even imagine. And the support that like they have provided for the events and the support that I provide. Like recently, like 2 weeks ago, we hosted the 3-day Magic Moments event online for the first time ever, which I co-hosted with one of my great mentors. Someone who I'd always looked up to, and I was sitting beside them the entire day, presenting with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's really valuable about this insight into not only what you've done and who you're doing it for, but the idea that there's so many kernels of valuable lessons in everything that you've done. And I think if we think about who might be watching this, and we're obviously promoting, you know, any of the videos on the channel to anybody that would be interested in being inspired by somebody. If a young person were to tune in to this particular video and they're sitting in a situation where maybe feeling a little lost, they're facing year 11, they're facing year 12, which in for anyone who's outside of Australia, they're our final high school years. So I guess your secondary schooling. And for anyone who's facing those years, it's a case of, you do get told, oh, you've got to plan either your entry into university or start thinking about what job you're going to do, as if they are the only things that are the options. And there's not often a lot of talk about, well, what business would you like to start? What entrepreneurial journey would you like to be on? And it can seem quite daunting to someone who's a little younger, who perhaps just doesn't have life experience to call upon, to be able to look out into the big wide world and think, wow, I'm capable at 16, 17 of creating something that can have major global impact. So it's really good that if we were to create some sort of a lasting comment that would sit in the minds of someone who's looking for inspiration, what would you say to somebody, Wil, that would perhaps just get them to think about what their future could be?
I guess, like, for context, I graduated school 6 months ago now, and my year 12 year, my attendance was 51%. And I didn't graduate school with a Western Australian certificate of education.
Okay.
But probably one of the biggest choices that I had to make, and I guess like choice is one thing we all have every single day. And in year 8, I went into a new school and I had to choose if I was going to own Planopedia or let others own for me. It was a plain website. It was something that was different. And I didn't know if it was okay to be different.
Mm-hmm.
And I obviously chose to own it. 2 years later, I was partnered with Qantas and Singapore Airlines, selling pens, sold 200 pens in 2 weeks. Again, I started a youth leadership academy as I was going into a different school, something a bit different, out of the ordinary. It was always I feel like my whole childhood has been different, and I've always thought different to my friends, my family, and my peers. And there's so many of us who think different. And what I guess we all need to understand is our differences are our greatest asset. There's no point us being the same person as the person next to us. There's no point us trying to do the exact same thing as the person on the other side of us. We won't be able to create that lasting change. We won't be able to build up to something where we are ourselves, and we won't be able to grow being someone else. So for me, the biggest choice that I've made is to be different and be myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess because I'm in an older age group, in my teens and early 20s, we didn't have the advantage of the internet, and it wasn't until probably in my late 20s that it became something that, you know, I jumped all over it in with the limited resources that I had. So I was really enjoying it. But where I'm thinking is, for someone who's now at a point where the internet is just an everyday tool, it's there, everyone has it more or less. And if you have something in your head or in your heart that says, you know, as you say, I'm a little different, what can I do? You know, I don't fit in. Maybe there is a problem out there that you can be part of the solution for. And maybe just changing perspectives and changing mindsets. What I'd probably like to ask you there, Wil, is have you found that because of what you're doing, because you are a leader in your experience and in what you're doing, have you found perhaps those who are maybe not in such good places in themselves or in their home environments are maybe reaching out to you for inspiration, or are perhaps seeing you as a real mentor? And have you had anyone approach you to see if you might be able to maybe provide them with mentoring? What's that experience been like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess for like my perspective, we always have the young leaders in each school with the student counsellors and the youth advisory counsellors who are always putting up their hand. And they're already seeking opportunities, but it's those who aren't necessarily seeking these opportunities that I've made it my mission this year to really try and reach. And which is why I recently created Lightbulb, which is an online leadership program for teenagers. And it was created to be accessible by anyone, for anyone. And I guess that was a real moment for me where it's literally anyone can access it at any point, which I wanted to provide for young people. And I guess it's still a really struggle to reach those who aren't reaching out. So for me, it's about reaching out to them and trying to find them and trying to say, well, here's a hint, let's reach out and build each other up, because it's them stories of others that build me up too and inspire me more and more every day.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm really trying, and there's like a big passion of mine to reach them other young people who are often not necessarily forgotten, but like they're missing out, you could say. They're like borderline ready to really step up.
Yeah, absolutely. And the more we nurture people that may not be perhaps in situations where they're getting that encouragement, or where they maybe just their confidence isn't quite so strong, or maybe they've just never been exposed to the sorts of broader thinking opportunities, this is that time where, you know, by connecting with what you're doing and listening to your summits online and just participating in any opportunities that you're providing, they're getting a really good opportunity to start believing in themselves. And I really think that is so critical. Just knowing that when you start believing in yourself, that's the time when you start reaching for different goals and starting to set priorities for yourself. And that's sometimes I consider that untapped potential, and I'm really all about, you know, helping people identify and reach their potential. So if I were to ask you, what's the next 5 years look like? Do you have a bit of a broader plan going on at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. So the vision of Youth Leadership Academy Australia is to provide leadership skills for all students, regardless of their financial situation. And for me, that looks like we charge either $29 or $39 for an event. I want to get that down to like $9 or $19.
Mm-hmm.
And for if anyone emailed me, I wanted me to be in a position personally to be able to say, no worries, you can have a ticket. Here's a ticket for free. Here's a ticket for free.
Yep.
And which I obviously can do that for some now, but I can't do it for every single young person.
Yep.
Which is my like dream, to be able to provide these skills of empowering young people to realize their true potential and allowing them, providing a space where they can be ambitious with no limitations, for all young people. And I guess the way we're doing that is through approaching shires and councils and asking them to fund some regional youth leadership summits. So we have a couple going on post-coronavirus in central New South Wales, where they've had a lot of trauma, fire, floods, droughts.
Yeah.
They've had and then coronavirus. So we have a couple in regional New South Wales, and then also some in northern Western Australia.
Mm-hmm.
But over the next few years, rolling them out nationally more frequently. And then also in 2021, we are starting to break into international waters, you could say, of New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
And then from New Zealand beyond.
Yeah.
And then in 5 years, I hope to not be the CEO. I hope for a younger person to be the CEO of Youth Leadership Academy Australia.
Okay.
And the reason why that is because obviously as an 18-year-old right now, who's just left school, I can relate. But in 5 years down the track, technology is going to be different. The world's going to be different. There's going to be completely different dynamics. And I won't be in touch with the generation that will be going through the programs.
Mm-hmm.
And there may be ambassadors, there may be different people, but I hope that there are other young people ready to step up into these positions where they're in touch with their generation and their age group.
Yeah, that's a fantastic vision, because ultimately, as you've indicated, it's about, you know, the young people helping the young people. So it's about youth helping youth. And so tell me a little bit more, just so that anyone who's tuning in can and have a bit more of an understanding. And there will be links to everything that is contactable about Wil's programs in the description for this video and also in the podcast. So you can always go and check out the links, but just for the purposes of making it a little clearer, what is the Youth Leadership Academy Australia? Tell us more about that in terms of what's its basic structure, or what is it you actually do? Give us just a bit of an outline.
Absolutely. So we pretty much have 3 streams, you could say. The first one is events, and these started with our first ever State Youth Leadership Conference in Perth in 2018. And this is a one-day event for 12 to 17-year-old, high school students. And we bring in a bunch of keynote speakers, and we have 6 objectives, which are raise awareness about the opportunities of entrepreneurship, create a safe space where they can be ambitious with no limitation, make them more aware of their ability to make an impact regardless of their space, provide them with leadership skills, provide them with an understanding of the potential of teamwork, and also communication skills as well.
Wow. And
throughout this event, there's all them things embedded, as well as 3 keynote speakers. And my favorite part of the event is called the Changemakers panel, which is a panel of 3 young people from across the state who obviously know the dynamics of the state so much better. Like, obviously they're the young people, and they've actually made a change within their community. They've contributed, they've created something. And for the young people sitting there who get to ask them questions, it's a panel style question time. They ask the most incredible questions, and they become to realize their ability to make an impact also, because they see if they can do it, so can I. So that's the State Youth Leadership Conference. And then our second part is programs, and that's where schools and shires contact us and bring us in to provide a tailor-made program for their school. The dynamics are completely different for every program, and we provide a program, a post-event program, and support their students along the way. And then finally is our online platform, where we have Lightbulb, which is a 6-week online leadership program, which is super affordable. It's $30 for 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the Virtual Young Entrepreneur Summit, which is free, and that's monthly, except July because I moved houses.
Yep.
And all of our programs are supported by post-event programs, because we see so many events and so many things like this where they have the event, it goes up, the momentum is so high at the end of the event, it's high for a week, and then all of a sudden, a week later, they don't even remember the name of the event. So the post-event program for us is about sustaining that momentum and creating lasting change within communities and within schools around Australia, around the world. And I find that really, that's one of the most important things for me, is about allowing these students to leave a legacy within their communities.
Absolutely. Yeah. Wow, that's a really empowered and very strong vision that you have for something that started out as a seed of an idea after attending and being a participant in just someone else's event. So what inspired you to start looking at all of the different structures? How did you get I guess you mentioned earlier that you threw yourself headlong into doing an event, but you also registered the academy just so that you could host an event. So all of this has just been one big learning curve. Where have you gained your business insights from? Has it been a little bit hit and miss, or do you have a mentor? What have you done to increase that knowledge?
Yeah, and that's where I'm very blessed for the Magic Moments Foundation, because all of the speakers from that event are like the most incredible mentors, and one of them two of them actually I became really close with, Anna Richards and Dale White.
Mm-hmm.
And they hosted the first ever business session, you could say, and I handed them both actually a Plainophilia pen, and from that moment they've supported me, and they both remember the time I gave them the pen, because they did see potential in me. And each time I have a problem or a stuck point, I would message one of them, I would reach out, and they've really supported me on building up the business and coming up with new ideas and just little tips that I needed to know.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also really cool now that I get the opportunity to teach what I have been taught, to some people who've been through my events, and they're also grateful for the skills that I've been taught from the mentors that I've had.
Yeah. So would you say that having a mentor or having several mentors has been a really critical part of your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess for me, the biggest thing that from the very start, it's been accountability. I share them my ideas and I share them my vision each week and the goals that I'm going to set. So then I have someone to keep me accountable. And I guess that's the biggest thing that I've ever done, and the most significant thing has shared my vision and shared my goals for the week every week. So I would highly recommend to anyone listening, get an accountability partner where you can just share your goals, share what you're going to achieve, and then touch back a week later and say, I did it. I really did it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really valuable, I think, that we echo the importance of that. Oftentimes we don't take the risks or believe in ourselves, and unless there's somebody that is supporting us with that belief or with holding us accountable, or even just being the inspiration and source of information that we need, quite often we can slip through those cracks. So I think we're echoing really valuable information here for anyone listening. If you don't already and you don't quite know how to, start talking to somebody that's maybe a teacher, or maybe your parents know somebody who's in business, maybe you know somebody who does something that might be able to provide you with an outlet to source a mentor. Perhaps there's somebody in your community that can support you. but find somebody, and maybe Will might be able to put some ideas forward for you, and we might be able to have some contact information there that
Absolutely.
support and provide that level of ideas creation. So if we've looked at what's possible in the next 5 years, and you've got a global plan, which is fantastic, and it's already started to look like it's being implemented with just going across to New Zealand as a very, very starting point, which is really super exciting. If you're looking at the ideas of expanding and recognizing that because of the focus of what the Youth Academy is about, being that it is for the young people, and obviously in 5 years' time you'll be a young adult, so you'll be stepping away from the school-based system. So we've already looked at those big plans that you've got. What about such things as is there anything in the pipeline, such as like a book or a program that is something that is, what's the word I'm thinking, not just online, but one that is something that you could take to the general public? Is there something such as, your journey? Is there some way that you're sharing that message?
Very great question. I guess like the best thing, one of the things I'm currently creating are lesson plans for teachers. We know public schools don't obviously have as much funding as private schools, and they can't often attend these events or invest this money in their students. Mm-hmm. So providing lesson plans for teachers and for like obviously homeschool parents as well, where they can also teach the lessons that we teach at a level. I guess in terms of a book, I've kind of never really, I guess I share my knowledge in my LinkedIn often. That's probably the place where I share most of the stuff. Mm-hmm. And then I get a few keynote speaking gigs every now and then, but I haven't invested too much time or energy in it yet, because I guess I've been so focused on establishing Youth Leadership Academy Australia, which I did mention to someone before. 2021 tour is the first tour where I'm actually going to get the opportunity to reach out to peak bodies. I'd recently just had a call with Tasmanian Peak Body, and I'll actually have the opportunity to reach out to these people because I know what works. I know the systems that work for marketing. So I'm super excited to be able to do that, and to be able to offer some more services in that sort of platform, and have more time to publicize the free things that we do and the opportunities that arise.
Well, that's really, really well thought outside the box. I mean, it never even occurred to me as we were having this conversation to consider people that are homeschooling, because I know we don't tend to homeschool quite so much here in Australia, although it does happen, particularly in the further outreaches of places away from the big built-up towns. But homeschooling's super, super big in some of the other countries, and that potential there is, again, is there scope maybe to go into some of the other countries doing something similar? I mean, obviously, it sounds like your mind is one of an expanded thought process. So you're looking at what options are there. I guess almost really the sky's the limit, isn't it?
Absolutely. So we still have about, I think it's about 10 to 15% of our attendees at our events are actually homeschooled. And like I said before, they are the ones who are looking for these opportunities. They're looking for networking opportunities. They're looking for ways to meet new people. And I guess there's a huge platform for them. Don't know if that's just our marketing on Facebook, but it does attract quite a number of homeschooling students. But yeah, definitely want to reach out to further communities that don't even have schools, or I guess one of my very big goals is to create like a 2-week leadership program where like a bunch of students from Australia go over to like one of the rural communities in Africa and teach the leadership skills.
Wow.
So then they have the ripple effect of young people teaching young people. Then when this group leaves, the leaders already in the rural communities then go out into their communities and continue that ripple effect of youth teaching youth. Because I know me personally, I can't impact the billions of young people. But what I can do is impact one person who then impacts another person who then impacts another person.
Yeah.
And it's that ripple effect.
Yeah, absolutely. Got to love the ripple effect. That's partly why I do what I do, is because I know that if I if I find a solution to a problem and I impact one person, that ripple effect, it goes on and on to other people who then are built up and they can find a way to go on and help another. So I think anything that creates that positive ripple is just really essential that we support that as much as possible. I'm curious in terms of with what you're doing and all of that, what is it you actually find time to do that gives you the creative juices? Do you do anything other than what you're focused on with youth leadership? What kind of creative downtime do you do? What's your downtime thing?
So I have probably two main focuses, one being Youth Leadership Academy Australia, the other one being Magic Moments Foundation, which is probably like 30% of my time. And then I vlog. I used to love video editing so much. And I actually created a YouTube channel because it's just fun. And I just do whatever and find myself funnier. I don't care if anyone, I haven't done it in a while actually, because I've been incredibly busy, but it's a chance for me to just test out new things, editing softwares. And I do like making videos. And I recently made a promo video for myself and it was so much fun. I spent like 3 days on it and it turned out incredible. And the result of it, seeing like all that hard work that I'd done over the 3 days come to life, was like personal high five.
I like that gesture, the personal high five. I think that, we've got to support ourselves. We've got to give ourselves the proverbial pat on the back when we achieve something, because if you're aware of it, I know that I am. I really do see that for some reason, and maybe many reasons, maybe multiple reasons and causes over the years, I think our communities just around Australia and globally, our global village, we seem to have become really quite bogged down in, maybe a little bit of the divisive thinking, the us and them, and there's a little bit of bullying going on in places where, it just makes no sense that people are going down those not so positive pathways. And I think it's really important that, starting particularly with people that are, at a school age, being influenced by a lot of peers and being influenced by people in positions of authority around them, that they receive some sort of positive insight into the world. Because yes, the world has some troubles going on. COVID is certainly showing us that, there's a lot going on in the world, and it's really important that we do acknowledge ourselves, give yourself a personal high five, pat yourself on the back, do something that shows you that you are proud of yourself for what you've done. And don't be afraid to admit that you're proud of yourself, because the world can sometimes forget who you are when you've done something good, but they never seem to forget when you've done something a little bit not so good. So we need to constantly prop ourselves up. So I think your personal high five there, go for it. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there another story or anything else you'd like to share that kind of encapsulates just everything that is what you see in the world and where you're at and the role you're playing?
I guess I'll continue on the personal high five journey of each year I create a done board, which recognizes myself for all the things that I had achieved in the year, because often we do so much, but we're working so much that it doesn't seem like we're making any progress. And this done board simply recognizes the things that we've achieved. It's often on the back of my vision board for the year. And it shows that what we've done, what we've achieved, what we've accomplished. And it's often a reminder, like, yes, you are making progress. And I continually update it through the year, and it's like a journey. I don't have any on me at the moment, but if I did, I would show you. Yeah. So that's another also way to just remind yourself, like, yes, you are making progress.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant idea. And, it's really easy to forget, as you say, sometimes the little accomplishments, they don't feel like much because they are incremental. And it's not just that one completion of the task that makes the task feel like it was a big achievement. It's all the 10 steps that you've had to take. And even though that final one is the big one, it's these little steps along the way. And if we don't praise ourselves, reward ourselves, or even just speak out loud that we're proud of ourselves, or even mark it off on on a, you know, success list that says, hey, I achieved this, you know, wow, that's a big accomplishment. If we don't remember that those little steps are the steps along the way, then we might get to that big achievement and not really think much of it. And this, to me, what's important about that is that for anyone who might perhaps struggle a little bit with things like maybe a bit of poor self-esteem or low confidence, or who's maybe got some anxiety issues, if you don't reward yourself, acknowledge yourself and support yourself with those little ticks of accomplishment, it's easy to get caught up in that feeling of overwhelm and maybe think that things aren't quite as successful or as good as they could be. So anything that you're suggesting there, I think they're brilliant ideas. And yeah, absolutely, we need to remind ourselves when we've done good, you know, hey, we've done
exactly.
good. Yeah.
From a day perspective all the way to a year perspective, like each day make a to-do list and tick it off, because your brain's like also personal lives.
Yeah, absolutely. So you do a daily checklist that you set. Now, do you do that the night before so that in the morning it's ready to go, or do you do that as part of your morning routine?
I'm very bad with morning routines at the moment, given that I've just moved. So I moved from like home to like living by myself. So
wow. Okay.
Yeah. So one of my highest value is independence, and obviously I've been traveling alone for the last 4 years, like internationally, and the final step for me was to move out. I had like getting my license was like another major like milestone for me to have that independence, and that was just like I need to move out to be able to mentally be able to grow.
Yes,
to the next step.
Absolutely.
And so I'm super excited. I've moved out of home, moved to the city now, where I can meet so many more people, have so many more opportunities, and I guess that is like a huge thing for me to have that independence. But in terms of morning routine, when I lived at home, I had like a weekly routine of like different time slots, because obviously there's like Magic Moments Youth Leadership Academy, and then there's also like cool things like this where I get to connect with cool people, and scheduling them time blocks in. But to-do list, it sort of depends on what goes at the moment. If it's at nighttime, perfect. If it's in the morning, that's also fine.
Cool. Yeah, and firstly, kudos to you for realizing that moving out away from the confines of, whether it be in many cases a really positive and loving family, or maybe moving away from a family that perhaps hasn't been quite so strong or positive to be around, whatever the situation, I would strongly support anybody who's thought maybe, you know, should I move out? Can I do it? I don't believe I can, you know, and having that jumbled self-talk going around in your head. If you can find a way to start your path to independence, absolutely, you are never too young to do it. And that's not to say you shouldn't be supported. And if you can be supported, fantastic. But independence is one of the best self-growth tools, has been my experience. I left home at 16, and you know, I've been pretty much independent ever since. And I would never, ever, ever say to anybody that I would do that differently. That was probably one of the instrumental parts of how I learned just to know that I was pretty much almost unbreakable. Because once you've gone through a few things, you fall over, you hurt yourself, those sorts of things, you pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, and you realise you are the person that has what it takes to be able to make the changes in your world. So kudos to you for taking that big step and recognising that it'll play a major role in your world going forward. I think what you've done and what you've accomplished in this short period of time has been really quite remarkable. I think what you're aspiring to achieve, and the steps that you've got in place, and even the little daily actions and the steps you take to make sure that you've got things in place, they're all major lessons that anyone watching this can certainly take a leaf out of your book. And not necessarily just young people. I find that some of the older generation of people who, like myself, came into the internet later because it wasn't around when we were younger, I know that there are still some people that, not quite my generation, maybe a few years older, who are really quite anxious about what the internet's all about and still haven't played that catch up. So even just watching something like this and hearing somebody that's got a real sense of hope and a sense of passion and a sense of just something to aspire to, is a real motivation for people to really to sense and feel and absorb some of that energy. So let's wrap this up with a couple of questions. So my usual 3 questions are to summarize what we've talked about. And so it would be, so what is it you do? Who do you do it for? And why do you do it?
Okay, what do I do? Oh, wow. Now, why am I confused now? It's the easiest 3 questions. What do I do? I run leadership programs for young people, by young people, in the hope of empowering them to engage within their school, community, and home as leaders. Why do I do it? Because I didn't believe our education system was providing them skills for our young people, the skills that were building a future that we can look forward to, a future that's sustainably positive. And there's obviously a lot of talk about creating a sustainable planet in terms of recycling and pollution, but what about a sustainable planet in terms of leadership, where we are all building each other up?
Yeah.
So that's where it started.
Yeah.
And then who I do it for is for the young people, and not only for the young people, but like my message is your age does not determine your ability to achieve extraordinary things. And on my 16th birthday, I was so incredibly sad because I was like, I'm 16, I'm getting not young anymore. And after that day, I decided to never ever let my birthday be like a disadvantage, and it was always going to be a celebration. And I remind my parents that every day, like if they have dad's an ideas person, mum's does the ideas, and what I remind them is like, yes, you may be 50, but like that doesn't matter. You still have another 50 years. You're not too old. And you're not too young if you're 14. You're not too young if you're 11. Whatever you want to do, you can learn. And finally, like I'll jump back to the mentoring part. Like a mentor doesn't necessarily have to be the person that you talk to live. We have this incredible thing called the internet where you can listen to videos, you can listen to podcasts like this. There's so many resources out for us available, and there's so many people willing to help. A key platform that if you're seeking this entrepreneurial journey to reach out to people on is LinkedIn. There's so many professionals on it who are prepared to just help.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, that is an amazing insight into a really inspiring journey, and it's a journey that is still well and truly on your trajectory. You've still got so much ahead, and I just think it's been an amazing conversation just to see and find out and learn what it is you're doing and how you're making a difference. And you're one of those genuine action takers. It's sometimes easy to say, oh, there's a problem in the world, and there are many problems, but it takes I guess a special kind of person to step up and say, well, let's be part of that solution. Let's create the solution. Let's implement that solution. Let's make a difference. And not everyone is going to be in a position to do that. So sometimes one person has to act on behalf of, but we need to be able to have that momentum and get others to buy into the idea so that they do actively want to participate and realize that participating in something doesn't mean sacrificing huge amounts of what they set up as their ideal life. They can still participate and be active, as long as there's somebody who is a real leader like yourself, who's there to say, well, this is what we're doing, this is how we're doing it, and this is why we're doing it. And there's enough motivation in there to carry right across a community. So on all of that note, I would really like to thank you very much, Wil, for giving your time today. I think it's been a real inspiration.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And if you could, at the end of this, once we've finalised, send some links to me that will be links to the Youth Leadership Academy and any other areas that you believe that will allow people to contact you or to take part in any of your programs. Because what I'd really like to encourage is that anyone who's watched this, reach out to Wil if you have questions. Find out how can you do what he's doing? How can you be inspired by what he is doing? And how can you take it to your community and be part of that same action-orientated solution and doing good within your local and global communities?
I'm so thankful for being here and so honoured. for being able to be a part of this podcast. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure, Will. Thank you so much. And I'll go and upload this today. And yeah, feel free to share it around with anybody that you think will benefit from hearing more about your journey.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Terry.
Thanks, Will. Bye-bye.